Seattle rain drums on the Harbor Nexus Expo. Evan Murrow, impeccably tailored and calm, a CEO who solves cities with code, stops when a little girl stares at a poster of hot sandwiches and whispers, "I wish I could eat that." She clutches a translucent maple leaf badge like a key. He kneels and offers help, but helping will cost him. Will he choose the contract or the child? Seattle rain fell in silver lines that blurred the piers and drove people inside. Harbor Nexus glowed like a warm lantern. Screens looped demos, volunteers clipped badges, espresso hissed. Evan Murrow stood by a display of routing maps, suit precise, blue eyes calm behind designer frames, pretending the schedule in his pocket was oxygen. Applause from his panel still hummed. A board member hovered with an itinerary. Evan nodded. But something in the air tugged at him, a ripple. A small voice said barely above the hum, "I wish I could eat that." He turned, not toward a kitchen, toward a poster, glossy, backlit, a stack of hot sandwiches drawn with curling steam. A girl stood in front of it, jacket too thin, sneakers wet. 6, maybe. Brown hair flattened by rain. In her fist, a clear badge swung on a lanyard, a translucent maple leaf printed in the middle, edges scuffed white. She wasn't wearing an expo pass. She was holding luck. Evan scanned for the adult who should be beside her. No one. Staff moved past, busy with donors and demos. His watch buzzed. He dismissed the alert without looking. He stepped closer until he could hear her breath catch at the image of bread and heat. He kept his voice low, as if speaking to the sign. "Convincing picture," he said. "Looks warm." She didn't startle. She tightened her grip on the maple leaf badge and edged half an inch away, measuring. "It's just a picture," she said. "What's your name?" he asked. A pause. "Mia." "I'm Evan." He crouched so the poster sat level for both of them. "Are you here with someone, Mia?" She flicked a look to the glass doors. Rain hammered the atrium. "I came in with a big group," she said. "If you walk close, the guard doesn't see you. I found this by the ferry." She tapped the badge with a chapped thumb. "It makes it feel like I belong." The maple leaf caught the light and glowed pale amber. Evan nodded. "Sometimes you need a thing you can hold," he said. "What do you hold?" she asked, quick, curious under the careful. "A scarf," he said. "Old habit." A countdown echoed. Someone asked for a quote about scaling compassion. "Are you hungry now?" he asked. Mia's shoulders lifted, then fell. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. "Okay," he said. "We'll figure something out." "We?" She tried the word like a step onto a wet dock. "If you want," he said. "No rush." Her fingers loosened. The badge turned in her palm, leaf veins shining. A charm, a key. "What if they tell me to go?" she asked. "Then they'll talk to me," he said, "and I'll listen to you." For a heartbeat, the expo faded. No panels, no donors. Just rain and a child facing a lit picture of food. Evan stood. The itinerary bent in his pocket. The day's harbor shifted. He glanced toward the doors that opened onto the food trucks where steam rose like flags. He looked back at the maple leaf in Mia's hand. "Do you like gloves when your hands are cold?" he asked. Her mouth rounded. "Yes." "Me too," he said, and the smile that followed was true. They stepped away from the poster into the current of the atrium. Evan did not look toward the press booth. He matched Mia's shorter stride, past tables of brochures, past the scrolling map of routes and needs. The maple leaf badge swung between them, catching light, keeping time. At the edge of the crowd, Mia looked up. "Are you sure?" she said. "About helping?" he asked. "About we," she said. He let the question hang, honest. "I'm sure for the next few steps," he said, "and we'll keep checking." Mia nodded once, solemn as a vow. The rain kept falling. The doors to the trucks slid open on a wave of steam and quiet hope. Evan reached for the handle, steady, present, as if opening it could change more than weather. Rain drummed steady against the glass walls of Harbor Nexus, streaking the city lights into ribbons. Inside, the warmth hummed with controlled energy. Executives networking over espresso, volunteers moving boxes, digital displays glowing with promises of ethical AI. Evan Murrow moved through it all, like a man trapped in a glass cage he'd built himself. Every detail of him was composed: the tailored Italian suit, the polished shoes, the precise knot of his silk tie. His expensive watch gleamed whenever he checked the time, which was often. Each buzz meant another meeting, another demand for his signature, another investor expecting miracles. But, under the polish, there was quiet fatigue, the kind that doesn't show in posture but lingers in the eyes. Evan's blue eyes looked calm, intelligent, in control. Yet, when no one was watching, they dimmed with a kind of practiced emptiness. He'd spent the last decade building algorithms to predict needs: food shortages, transport inefficiencies, shelter gaps. His systems saved money, optimized aid routes, won awards. But lately, it all felt hollow. People praised him for creating systems that understood humanity. But when he went home to his high-rise apartment overlooking Elliott Bay, the silence was louder than any applause. Tonight, that silence followed him even here, until he met Mia. He watched now as she stood beside him in the queue outside a food truck, her damp hair clinging to her cheeks. She studied the chalkboard menu like it was written in another language. Her small hands trembled inside borrowed gloves. "Take your time," Evan said gently. The vendor smiled at him with quick recognition. "Mr. Murrow, honored to serve you again. The Harbor Nexus hero, huh?" Evan forced a polite nod. He hated that word, hero. "Hot sandwiches," he said, motioning toward Mia. "Let her pick first." The vendor leaned down. "What'll it be, sweetheart? We've got grilled cheese, turkey melt, tomato soup." Mia's voice was barely a whisper. "Grilled cheese, please." "Good choice," the vendor said cheerfully. "Extra melty?" She nodded, a flicker of something bright breaking through her shyness. Evan added softly, "And one warm milk." Then, almost as an afterthought, "Make that two." When they stepped aside to wait, the smell of butter and heat filled the air. Mia's eyes followed the sandwich on the grill like it was a miracle being made right in front of her. "You did everything right," Evan said. "Asked politely, waited your turn. Not everyone does that." She shrugged. "Mom says manners don't fill your stomach." He looked down at her, surprised by the raw honesty in her tone. "Your mom sounds smart." "She is," Mia said quietly. "She just hasn't come back yet." Evan wanted to ask what that meant, but he didn't. Not yet. The vendor handed them 2 paper trays, steam rising. Evan led her to a bench near the window. The city glowed outside, wet asphalt reflecting neon. Inside, the food truck lights made everything look golden. Mia took her first bite and closed her eyes. For a moment, the world was warm again. Evan watched her eat, feeling a strange tightness in his chest. Not pity, not guilt, but something deeper, something he hadn't felt in years. He didn't touch his own sandwich right away. He just sat there, watching her small shoulders relax, listening to the hum of rain and laughter around them. When she finished, she wiped her hands on a napkin, eyes darting up as if waiting for permission to leave. "You don't have to go," he said softly. "There's a clinic inside. Volunteer nurses, just to make sure you're okay. No needles, I promise." Her gaze flicked to the doors again. "Will they tell anyone I'm here?" "They'll just make sure you're warm," Evan said. "And you can keep that badge." She clutched the maple leaf badge close to her chest. "It's lucky," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Maybe it is." For a long moment, they sat in silence. The CEO and the child, bound by nothing but rain and kindness. And, for the first time in months, Evan felt something stir beneath his carefully controlled calm, the faint, unfamiliar pulse of purpose. As they rose to go inside, he caught their reflection in the glass. his sharp suit beside her small frame and scuffed sneakers, and thought, maybe the algorithm isn't the only thing that needs fixing. The volunteer clinic was tucked behind the expo's main hall, a modest corner of light and soft chatter amid the hum of machines. Evan guided Mia through the glass doors, holding them open as a nurse looked up from a tablet. The nurse's badge read, Erin, Pediatrics. "Hi there," Erin said warmly. "You two coming in out of the rain?" Mia hesitated, half hidden behind Evan's sleeve. "She's just a little cold," Evan explained. "We wanted to make sure she's okay." Erin nodded, kneeling to meet Mia's eyes. "That's brave of you to come in. I promise, no needles unless you say yes." Mia blinked at her, then slowly released her grip on the translucent maple leaf badge that still hung around her neck. "Okay," she whispered. Erin led her to a cot lined with folded blankets. "Let's get you checked, sweetheart." As Mia sat, Evan stayed back, watching. The nurse gently wrapped a thermometer sleeve, measured her pulse, then pressed her hand against Mia's wrist with quiet assurance. "She's underfed," Erin said softly, glancing up at Evan. "Not dangerously so, but definitely tired. Probably hasn't eaten regularly for a while. Any parent or guardian we should contact?" Evan hesitated. "She said her mom works nights and hasn't come back." Erin's expression shifted from professional calm to quiet concern. "That's not good." She crouched beside Mia again. "Sweetheart, do you remember where your mom works?" Mia frowned in thought. "She started a cleaning job, a big building with lots of glass, by the water." Evan knew half the city matched that description. Tech towers, offices, condos. "Has she ever not come home before?" Erin asked. "Only once," Mia said, "when the ferry broke down. She came back the next day." Evan felt the weight of that sentence settle in the room like fog. Erin smiled gently. "You did the right thing coming here. You're safe now, okay?" Mia nodded but didn't look convinced. She glanced toward the window, where rain streaked like moving glass, and whispered, "I sleep by the fairy light sometimes. It's brighter there." Evan's chest tightened. "You've been sleeping outside?" She didn't answer. Her silence was enough. Erin looked at him, a silent question in her eyes. Evan knew that look. It wasn't judgment. It was, "What are you going to do next?" He took a breath. "Can you keep her here for a bit? I'll call in some people from our community network." "Of course," Erin said softly. "She'll be safe here." As Mia settled under a blanket with a cup of warm milk, Evan stepped into the hallway, pulling out his phone. The rain's rhythm on the roof became a pulse beneath his thoughts. He opened his nonprofit app, one of the quieter projects under Harbor Nexus, designed for coordination among food banks, shelters, and outreach volunteers. Normally, he used it for data tracking. Tonight, he used it like a lifeline. "Hey," he said when a familiar voice picked up. "Rosa, it's Evan. I need help finding someone. Fast." Rosa Rivera ran. Safe Steps, a volunteer-led network for families in crisis. "Talk to me." He gave Lena's name, Mia's description, and every scrap of detail they had. Rosa was already typing as she spoke. "We'll check shelters, meal lines, clinics. No police yet?" "No," Evan said firmly. "I don't want to scare her if her mom's just lost or hurt." Rosa's tone softened. "Still the ethical line, huh?" "Always," he said. "All right," she replied. "Give me 2 hours." He hung up and leaned against the wall. Behind the door, he heard Mia's small laugh. The nurse must have said something kind. It was the first sound of childhood he'd heard from her, and it struck something deep. He checked his watch. 3 meetings missed, 2 more waiting. His board would call soon. But for once, the pressure felt far away. He turned toward the clinic window, watching droplets race down the glass. In the reflection, he barely recognized himself, the precise man in the perfect suit now standing barefoot in uncertainty. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but tonight, a stranger's trust had cut through the static of his life. Mia's maple leaf badge glinted on the chair beside her. A found ticket, she'd called it. Maybe, he thought, she wasn't the only one who needed a way back inside. By the time the rain eased into a fine mist, the Harbor Nexus Expo had begun to quiet. The crowd thinned, lights dimmed, and the air smelled faintly of coffee and rain-soaked pavement. Evan returned to the clinic carrying 2 cups of cocoa, one for Mia, one for himself, though he doubted he'd drink it. Mia was sitting on the cot, swinging her legs lightly, her shoes off to dry beneath a chair. The nurse, Erin, had gone to the next patient, leaving her wrapped in a soft gray blanket. Her maple leaf badge rested on the cot beside her, glinting under the fluorescent light. "You came back," she said when she saw him. "Of course," Evan replied. "I said I would." He handed her the cocoa. "Extra marshmallows. I negotiated that for you." Her eyes widened as she sipped. "It's warm," she said softly. "Good," he said. "How are you feeling now?" She shrugged. "Less floaty." He smiled faintly, sitting beside her. "Floaty's not a bad word for it. You've had a long couple of days, huh?" Mia looked down at her badge, tracing the maple leaf with her finger. "Mom says when you don't have money, you need luck. I found this by the ferry. I thought maybe it meant something." Evan studied the badge. It was cracked near the corner, the plastic cloudy with scratches, but the symbol, a translucent maple leaf, still shone through. "Maybe it does," he said quietly. "Luck isn't always random. Sometimes it's what shows up when someone's looking for a reason not to give up." She tilted her head, curious. "Do you believe in luck?" He hesitated. "I believe in timing, and people who notice." Mia nodded thoughtfully, as if she understood more than her years allowed. Erin returned with a clipboard. "Mia's in good shape overall," she told him. "A bit dehydrated, low on calories, but she just needs a good meal and rest. I've logged her under a temporary stay so she can sleep here for a few hours if needed." "Thank you," Evan said. The nurse smiled. "She trusts you." "That's rare, you know." Mia looked up. "He didn't talk like the others." Evan glanced at her. "The others?" "People who wear badges," she said simply. "They talk fast and don't look at you. You looked." He exhaled, moved in a way he couldn't explain. "That's the least anyone should do." When Erin stepped away again, Evan took a quiet breath. "Mia, I need to ask something important. You said your mom took a night shift. Do you remember when that was?" "2 nights ago," she said. "She said she'd bring soup home after. I waited, but the lights went out. So I went to the ferry. It's brighter there. The guards don't make you leave if you sit still." Evan's jaw tightened. "You waited alone?" She nodded. "Until I got too cold. Then I came here because I saw food trucks on the screen outside." He looked at her small hands holding the cup, and guilt threaded through him. Not personal guilt, but something deeper, something about how a city this advanced still left children in the rain. He stood and took out his phone. "Mia, I'm going to find your mom, I promise." Her eyes searched his face. "People say that and then they stop trying." "I don't stop trying," he said simply. "That's kind of my thing." Something in his voice must have convinced her. She leaned back against the cot, eyelids drooping. "Okay," she murmured, half asleep. "But come back, okay?" "I will," he said. "I'll come back." He waited until her breathing evened out, then stepped into the hallway, his phone already dialing Rosa. "Evan," she answered on the second ring. "I've got something. Shelter logs show Alina Ortiz checked in 2 weeks ago but never returned. We're cross-checking outreach routes. She might have been displaced again." He paced slowly. "Can we run it through Warmline data?" "Already doing that," Rosa said. "But, Evan, this isn't a job for algorithms. You know that, right?" "I know," he said. "That's why I'm still here." When he hung up, he returned to the window by the lobby. Rain streaked down the glass, turning the city into watercolor. Inside, the world of circuits and contracts hummed on, but for the first time it felt small. Mia's badge sat on the table beside her cocoa cup, its maple leaf shining faintly in the dim light. A symbol of belonging found by accident, or maybe by grace. Evan watched her sleep, the faintest smile touching his lips. Tomorrow, he would have to choose what kind of man he wanted to be, one who built systems, or one who listened when a child whispered hunger into the noise of progress. Morning crept over Seattle in muted gray. The rain had stopped but left behind puddles that reflected the skyline like a shattered mirror. Inside Harbor Nexus, the air was heavy with coffee and quiet footsteps. Evan stood by a window overlooking the docks, phone in hand, watching the city come awake. Rosa's message blinked on his screen. No confirmed sighting of Lena Ortiz. Checking St. Bridget's breakfast line next. Will update in 2 hours. He exhaled slowly. 2 hours felt like forever. Behind him, a faint yawn. He turned to see Mia rubbing her eyes, her blanket still draped over her shoulders. The maple leaf badge dangled from her neck again, her tiny claim of belonging. "You're up early," Evan said gently. Mia blinked at the bright lobby lights. "It's loud when people move boxes." He smiled faintly. "That's how you know a city's awake, when the boxes start moving." She gave him a sleepy nod. "Did you find Mom?" "Not yet," he admitted, "but I've got friends looking, real ones. They don't stop until they do." Her face softened, half hopeful. "Do they have maps?" "They have hearts that act like maps," he said. Her lips curved, just barely, at the odd phrasing. Erin, the nurse, approached holding a small paper bag. "Breakfast, oatmeal, apple slices, and a juice box. She's clear to leave whenever the caseworker arrives." "Caseworker?" Evan asked. Erin nodded. "Standard protocol. When a minor shows up unaccompanied, we contact social services. They're understaffed, so it'll take a bit." Mia froze. "Social services? Are they the ones who take you away?" Evan crouched beside her. "Hey, look at me. Nobody's taking you anywhere you don't feel safe, okay?" "But what if they don't believe me about Mom coming back?" Her voice cracked. "They didn't last time." He frowned. "Last time?" Mia stared at the floor. "When we lost our apartment. They said Mom couldn't care for me, but she got me back after. She promised we'd never be apart again." Evan's pulse slowed. He could feel how easily the wrong move might break her fragile trust. "Okay," he said carefully. "You're staying with me for now, just until we find your mom. But it has to be safe, and we'll tell the truth, all right?" She hesitated. "Okay." Erin smiled softly. "You're good with her." Evan shrugged. "I just listen." When Erin left, he guided Mia toward the entrance, where the rain had returned. Light, silvery, almost gentle. "You ever had pancakes from the harbor trucks?" he asked. She shook her head. "We only look. Mom says the smell's free." He smiled sadly. "Let's make it breakfast day, then." As they crossed to the waterfront, steam rose from the griddles. The vendor recognized Evan again but said nothing. He saw the child and understood. While Maya devoured pancakes and berries, Evan checked his phone again. Still no update from Rosa. He looked at Mia across the table, her face brightening under the overhang's light. She was a kid again, just for a moment. Sticky fingers, syrup on her chin, eyes alive. "You eat like you mean it," he said. She grinned. "That's how Mom says you win against hunger." He chuckled softly. "Smart Mom." Her expression dimmed again, as if the words reminded her she was still missing. "Do you think she's okay?" Evan paused. "I think your mom sounds like someone who doesn't quit, and I know she's looking for you, same as we're looking for her." Mia nodded, trying to be brave. Then she took the maple leaf badge and held it toward him. "Here, for now." He blinked. "For now?" "It's my lucky thing," she said, "but I think you need it too." Evan's throat tightened. "I'll keep it safe." They sat quietly as the morning thickened. Boats drifted across the gray water, their horns echoing through the mist. Evan's phone buzzed, a new message from Rosa. Possible match. Woman seen near St. Bridget's Church. Thin, brown hair, coughing badly. Volunteers confirmed she mentioned a daughter named Mia. He froze, relief mixed with urgency. He looked up at Mia. "I think we found her." Her eyes widened. "Where?" "St. Bridget's, not far. We'll go together, but I need to make sure we do this right." He messaged Rosa back. "Hold position. I'm coming." Then he turned to Mia, voice soft but steady. "Eat one more bite, okay? Big day ahead." She nodded, mouth trembling with the effort not to cry. Evan slipped the maple leaf badge into his jacket pocket like a promise. Outside, the rain began again. Not hard this time, but steady, constant, cleansing. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about boardrooms, deadlines, or investors. He was thinking about a mother, a child, and how the smallest act, listening, could reroute everything he'd ever built. By mid-morning, Seattle's sky was a dull pewter, the kind that promised more rain. Evan tightened his coat and glanced at Mia, who stood beside him clutching the paper cup of cocoa he'd gotten her for the road. She looked small against the wide stretch of wet pavement, but her eyes were bright with something new, hope. "St. Bridget's isn't far," he said, unlocking the car. "We'll take the scenic route. You okay riding up front?" She nodded quickly. "Mom says you should always look where you're going." "Smart advice," he said, helping her with the seatbelt. As they pulled away from the harbor nexus, the wipers swept in slow rhythm. Downtown blurred into the softer edges of the waterfront district, where the glass towers gave way to weathered churches, soup kitchens, and thrift shops. Mia traced a finger across the window fog. "Is this what you do?" she asked. "Drive around finding people?" "Not exactly," Evan said. "I build systems that help people find what they need. Food, shelters, medicine." "Like a map?" "Kind of," he said. "But sometimes the map needs a person to make it real." Mia considered that. "Maybe you're the person today." He smiled faintly. "Maybe we both are." When they reached St. Bridget's, the church steps were wet and crowded. Volunteers were serving hot breakfast under an awning, ladling soup into paper cups. The scent of bread and broth carried through the drizzle. A woman in an orange vest spotted them. "Mr. Murrow?" Evan recognized Rosa immediately. She had a clipboard in one hand and a rain hood pulled low over her hair. "You made good time," she said. "We think we found her." Mia's breath caught. "Mom?" Rosa crouched. "We think so, sweetheart. But she's resting. She wasn't feeling well. We didn't want to move her until she'd seen the nurse." Evan placed a hand on Mia's shoulder. "We'll go slow, okay?" They followed Rosa through the courtyard into the old church hall, where folding tables lined the room and the air was thick with the smell of soup and disinfectant. At the far corner, a woman lay under a wool blanket on a cot. Her hair was tangled, her hands trembling slightly as she breathed. Mia gasped. "Mom!" The woman's eyes fluttered open at the sound of her daughter's voice. "Mia!" The word cracked like glass. Mia ran, nearly slipping on the tile, and threw herself into her mother's arms. The woman coughed hard, then clutched her daughter tighter, crying softly into her hair. "Baby, I'm sorry. I tried to come home. I just couldn't walk that far. Mia shook her head fiercely. "You came back. That's all that matters." Evan stepped closer, but stayed back enough to give them space. Rosa quietly handed him a bottle of water. "She's dehydrated. The clinic nurse from St. Bridget's already checked her. Minor bronchitis, exhaustion. They'll treat her, but she needs a stable place to stay." Evan nodded, watching the pair cling to each other. He felt something in his chest shift, like a lock turning. When the nurse finished checking Lena's vitals, Evan knelt beside her. "Lena Ortiz? I'm Evan Murrow. Mia's been with me since last night. She's safe." Lena's eyes filled again. "She found you?" "More like I found her," he said softly. "She's brave, smarter than most people I know." Lena smiled faintly through her exhaustion. "She gets that from her dad." "Is he?" "Gone," Lena said quietly. 3 years now. Construction accident." She brushed Mia's hair back tenderly. "We've been trying to keep going ever since." Rosa checked her watch. We can coordinate a temporary housing placement through Safe Steps. It's not fancy, but it's warm and private. You'll both have beds and meals for a week while we get you stable housing." Lena nodded weakly. "I don't want charity." Evan met her gaze. "It's not charity. It's community. And we'll make sure you're not alone." She looked at him for a long moment, then whispered, "Thank you." Mia tugged on Evan's sleeve. "See? I told you my lucky badge worked." He smiled. "You might be right." Outside, the rain began again. Gentle, cleansing, steady. As Rosa arranged transportation for Lena and Mia to the temporary shelter, Evan stepped out under the awning, taking a deep breath of cold air. His phone buzzed again. Another call from the boardroom, another reminder of his unfinished obligations. He ignored it. Rosa joined him, folding her clipboard closed. "You did a good thing today, Evan. Most people would have passed her by." He looked through the glass doors, where Mia sat beside her mother, head resting against her shoulder. Most people don't listen when a child whispers. Rosa studied him. "You used to design for scale. Now you're designing for souls." He chuckled softly. "Maybe that's the next upgrade." As the volunteers loaded the last supplies, Evan slipped his hand into his pocket, fingers brushing the smooth edges of the translucent maple leaf badge. He looked at it for a long moment, light passing through it like dawn through mist. Maybe, he thought, that badge wasn't about luck at all. Maybe it was about showing up, and for the first time in years, he knew exactly what he needed to build next. The rain eased by early afternoon, leaving the streets glistening. Harbor Nexus, usually loud with ambition and clinking espresso cups, felt different when Evan returned. The tall glass atrium reflected the clouds, and people moved through the lobby like currents, busy, polished, unaware of the quiet transformation that had just happened a few miles away. He walked toward the elevator, passing a group of staff discussing new AI routing contracts. Their words, efficiency, optimization, scalability, bounced off the marble walls. They used to thrill him. Now they sounded sterile. In his office, everything gleamed. White desk, chrome fixtures, minimalist perfection. He'd once loved the order, the way it made him feel in control. But now, the silence pressed heavy. He set the maple leaf badge on the desk and watched sunlight slip through it, scattering gold on the surface. A soft knock. His assistant, Tessa, poked her head in. "You missed 3 calls from the board. They're pushing for a signature on the federal logistics contract." Evan rubbed his temple. "Tell them I'll review it this evening." She hesitated. "Sir, the press is asking why you left mid-expo yesterday. Someone posted photos of you with a child. They're framing it as a publicity move." He looked up sharply. What?" "PR stunt," she said reluctantly. "They're asking if you were staging an outreach story before the contract approval." Evan's jaw tightened. "You know that's not true." "I know," Tessa said carefully, "but they don't. I can draft a response. Say you were assisting a child lost during the event. Keep it light." He stared at the badge again. The idea of reducing Mia's story to a press note made his stomach twist. "No," he said finally. "We don't spin it. We tell the truth if anyone asks, but we don't use it." Tessa nodded, uncertain. "Understood." She turned to leave, but paused at the door. "Sir, the way you looked out there, I don't think you were thinking about cameras anyway." He offered a faint smile. "No, I wasn't." When she left, he sat in the quiet and replayed the morning in his mind. Lena's cracked voice, Mia's trembling fingers, the small miracle of reunion. He opened his laptop, fingers hovering over the screen. For years, his work had been about algorithms that could feed cities, reroute trucks, balance supply and demand. But somehow, despite all his data, people like Mia and Alina were still falling through the cracks. He clicked into his nonprofit dashboard, scrolling through partner networks. Food banks, shelters, clinics. The information was all there, but fragmented. What if he could link them, not with surveillance or forced tracking, but with consent-based data? A transparent system that respected privacy yet saved time, lives, and meals. He opened a blank project file and typed the title, Warm Circuit. He paused, whispering the words aloud. It sounded human, alive. His phone buzzed again, this time a direct call from a board member. He answered, tone calm but firm. "Carson, I know the contract's urgent." "Yes, I've seen the terms." He listened, gaze fixed on the maple leaf badge glowing faintly on his desk. "Yes. I walked out of the expo," he said, "because someone needed help, and if that ruins a press cycle, so be it." There was a long pause on the other end. Then, "You're risking shareholder confidence for sentiment, Evan." "Maybe sentiment is what we've been missing," Evan replied quietly. "If we build systems without compassion, we're just coding indifference." He hung up before the man could respond. Outside, thunder rolled faintly over the sound. The city smelled of wet cedar and diesel. Evan stared at the badge again, then at the new file on his screen. Warm Circuit would be unlike anything he'd built before. It wouldn't measure profit margins. It would measure presence, speed, and empathy. It would rely on people opting in, not being observed. It would treat dignity as data worth protecting. He reached for his phone and texted Rosa. "Can we talk later? Need your help designing something new. Community First AI. And I mean it this time." Her reply came fast. "You're serious? After the board drama?" "Especially after that," he typed. He leaned back, exhausted but lighter. For the first time in years, he wasn't trying to win. He was trying to care. Through the window, the skyline flickered to life as dusk approached. Somewhere out there, Mia and her mother were settling into a warm shelter, safe for the night. He turned off the office lights, leaving only the maple leaf badge glowing faintly in the half-dark. It reminded him of something Lena had said before he left. "She found you." Maybe that's what it was. A circuit reconnecting, one small spark at a time. The following morning broke cold and silver. A mist hovered over the sound and gulls wheeled above the ferry lines. Inside Harbor Nexus, the hum of innovation had returned. Voices echoing through glass corridors, screens flickering with forecasts and KPIs. But for Evan, everything felt slower, clearer, as if the noise had been turned down just enough to hear what mattered. He sat at his desk, sleeves rolled, coffee untouched. Across the glass table glowed the first wireframe for Warm Circuit, a map of dots and connecting lines representing every food donation hub, shelter, and transit node in the city. Each line pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. Tessa stepped in carrying a tablet. "The board meeting starts in 10, she reminded him. "They want your final signature for the federal contract before press coverage picks up." "I know," he said, eyes still on the map. "But this comes first." She frowned. "What's that?" He smiled slightly. "Something better than a contract." She tilted her head. "You really think one small network can change the city?" He turned toward her, his expression calm but certain. "Change doesn't always start with size, Tessa. Sometimes it starts with one meal delivered before it's too late." Tessa hesitated, then nodded. "I'll stall them for 20 minutes. After she left, he called Rosa. "You sound wired," she said when she picked up. "Been up all night?" "Since about 4, Evan admitted. "Listen, I want to build something. Transparent data sharing between local food programs, real-time tracking that doesn't invade privacy. Opt-in only. We call it Warm Circuit." There was silence on the line, then Rosa exhaled. "You're serious? Evan, do you realize how many hoops that'll take? The city, the nonprofits, the tech layer." "Yeah," he interrupted gently. "That's why I'm calling you." Rosa laughed softly. "You never do small." He smiled. "Neither do the problems we're trying to solve." She paused. "All right, let's try it your way. I'll reach out to the shelters, get consent forms drafted, but I'll need funding." "You'll have it," he said, quietly, under Nexus community grants, no headlines. After the call, he sat back, staring at the glowing badge resting beside his keyboard. Its edges caught the morning light, refracting it into thin rainbows across the desk. He thought about Mia, how she'd looked holding that badge like it meant she belonged. Maybe it did. Maybe belonging wasn't about ownership or money, but about someone listening long enough to care. His screen blinked. Tessa, again. "They're waiting in conference room B," she said through the intercom. "Carson's not happy." Evan sighed, stood, and pocketed the maple leaf badge. "Then let's make him less happy." The boardroom was all glass and chrome, with a panoramic view of the city's cranes and ships. Carson stood at the head of the table, arms folded. "We've been waiting," he said tersely. "The federal logistics deal is the biggest opportunity this company's ever had. We need your signature now." Evan took his seat slowly. "I've reviewed the terms," he said. "I'm not signing it." The room erupted in confusion. Carson blinked. "Excuse me?" "I'm not signing," Evan repeated calmly. "The contract grants access to private citizen data under the pretext of optimization. That's surveillance, not service. You're turning down a $100 million partnership because of semantics?" "Because of ethics," Evan corrected. "If we say our mission is to make cities kinder, then our tools can't dehumanize the people we claim to help." Carson's jaw tightened. "You're making a mistake. Investors will walk." Evan leaned forward, voice quiet but unshakable. "Then let them walk. I'd rather build something that feeds a child than feeds a quarterly report." The silence that followed was electric. One of the younger board members, a woman named Jill, finally spoke. "If I may," she said cautiously, "our social initiatives have never drawn real loyalty. Maybe this is the kind of integrity we need." Evan gave her a grateful nod. "Thank you." Carson's face hardened. "You're risking everything for an ideal." "Not an ideal," Evan said. "A child." He stood, gathering his notes. "Meeting adjourned. I'll have warm circuit ready for internal pilot by month's end. You can be part of it, or not." He left before they could argue. Outside, the clouds had begun to break, sunlight glinting on the wet streets. The air smelled clean, like something new had just started. As he walked through the lobby, he passed the same poster from the expo, the one of steaming sandwiches. It was just an image, but now it meant something else entirely. The spark of a promise kept. He touched the maple leaf badge in his pocket and smiled to himself. That small whisper, "I wish I could eat that," had done what no board vote ever could. It had changed everything. The city's rhythm had shifted. News outlets buzzed about Evan's decision to reject the federal contract, spinning it as both bold and reckless. By evening, hashtags began to trend. Shahart over hardware and Ushash Maple Leaf movement. Some praised him. Others mocked him for going soft. Inside Harbor Nexus, the glow of monitors reflected headlines Evan tried to ignore. He leaned against his office window, phone pressed to his ear. "Rosa," he said quietly. "How's Lena?" "She's stable," Rosa replied. "The clinic's given her antibiotics and rest orders. Mia's staying with her at the transitional apartment. They're safe, Evan." He exhaled slowly. "Good. That's what matters." "Also," Rosa added, "I talked to Lena about your project. She wants to volunteer once she's back on her feet. Said if it can stop another mother from falling through the cracks, she's in." A small smile tugged at his mouth. "She doesn't owe me anything." "She said you helped her daughter believe in people again," Rosa said softly. "That's worth more than anything she could pay back." Evan looked out at the wet streets below. Workers in orange vests moved crates under the drizzle. The city seemed alive in a new way, messy, human, unfinished. "I'll swing by tomorrow," he said. "They deserve to know the next step." That night, long after the office emptied, he sat in front of his computer, coding again. Not for profit margins or predictive analytics, but for people. Warm Circuit began to take shape line by line, like veins forming beneath the city's digital skin. He fed in simple rules. Prioritize surplus meals near shelters, weigh time and weather, use volunteer transport networks. No tracking of faces, no saleable data, just connections built on consent and care. At midnight, a message pinged from Tessa. They're saying you've derailed the quarter. Carson's furious. Press wants a comment. Evan replied, let them write what they want. We'll show results. He looked at the maple leaf badge resting beside his keyboard again. Its edges glowed faintly under the desk lamp. For the first time, he understood what it symbolized. Not luck, but choice. The next morning, he drove across town to the small transitional housing unit Rosa managed. The building wasn't much. Peeling paint, a flickering porch light, but the smell of coffee drifted from inside. When Mia opened the door, she lit up instantly. You came back. Didn't I promise? He said. She tugged him inside, talking fast. Mom's awake. She made pancakes from the food box Miss Rosa brought, and we got matching socks. He smiled. Sounds like a good morning. Lena looked up from the tiny kitchenette, her complexion still pale but her eyes clear. You shouldn't have come all this way, she said. I wanted to, Evan replied. How are you feeling? Better. Mostly tired, she said. But I heard about the contract. You really turned it down? He nodded. Some deals aren't worth signing. Lena studied him. I used to clean buildings like yours. You can't imagine how invisible people make you feel. What you did. It matters. He leaned against the counter. Honestly, it wasn't courage. It was just clarity. A little girl reminded me what hunger sounds like. Mia giggled shyly, sipping orange juice. You mean me? Yes. You, he said warmly. You changed my week. Lena's voice softened. You changed more than that. They sat at the small table, eating together while rain pattered softly against the windows. Evan told them about Warm Circuit, the idea, the ethics, the pilot plans. Lena listened carefully. You really think you can make it work? She asked. I think if enough people care, we can, he said. And if you're serious about volunteering, I'd be lucky to have you. Lena smiled faintly. Then I'm in. Mia leaned forward eagerly. Can I help too? He chuckled. I think you already did. The room filled with quiet laughter. Real, unforced. For a man who lived on boardroom victories, this felt like the first one that mattered. Later, when he returned to Harbor Nexus, Tessa was waiting outside his office with a hesitant smile. You might want to see this, she said, handing him a tablet. On the screen was a local news clip. Volunteers from 3 separate food programs had begun testing Warm Circuit's pilot. Real-time routing was already cutting delays in half. One line in the report made him pause. Inspired by a recent story of compassion at Harbor Nexus, the program has quietly fed over 50 families in 48 hours. Tessa watched him. You started something real. Evan shook his head. We all did. He turned the tablet off, pocketed the maple leaf badge, and looked out of the window. The rain had finally stopped. The streets shimmered clean, reflecting a city that, just maybe, was learning to care a little differently. By the end of the week, the gray skies broke just enough for sunlight to spill over the harbor cranes. Seattle gleamed, wet and alive. Harbor Nexus, once an emblem of corporate precision, now pulsed with quiet change. Evan walked through the glass atrium and saw things he hadn't before. Employees bringing donations to the lobby bin, volunteers sharing updates in the corners once reserved for deal talk, engineers using whiteboards to sketch outreach routes instead of profit models. The company was breathing differently, and so was he. He entered the strategy room where Rosa waited beside a large digital display. Lines of color traced across a live map, arcs connecting surplus kitchens to shelters and mobile clinics. Each pulse represented a successful Warm Circuit delivery. 57 completed runs in 72 hours, Rosa said proudly. Average food waste reduction, 92%. The algorithm's clean, but the heart's the people. Evan smiled. That's how it should be. She glanced at him. City Council took notice. They want to meet next week about scaling it across Seattle. You ready for politics again? He smirked. Only if I don't have to wear a tie. Rosa laughed. Then you're officially reformed. As the meeting ended, Tessa entered with a folder. Press still wants a quote, she said. But not about the contract, about the pilot. Apparently, kids at one shelter drew you thank you cards. Evan's brow lifted. Cards? Crayon masterpieces, she said with a grin. One of them even drew a maple leaf. He blinked. Mia, he murmured. Tessa frowned. Who's Mia? He smiled softly. Someone who reminded me what a whisper can start. That afternoon, Evan drove across the city to St. Bridget's again. The rain had returned, soft, steady, almost comforting now. Inside the church hall, volunteers bustled, stacking canned goods, checking lists. Mia spotted him first, darting from behind a folding table. You came! She shouted, nearly tripping over her boots. I keep my promises, he said, kneeling to meet her eyes. Lena appeared a moment later, still thin but brighter, color back in her face. You didn't have to check in, she said. I wanted to, he replied. How are you both doing? Mia grinned. We helped today. Mom sorted boxes and I made signs that say free warm meals. Miss Rosa said I'm on the team. Evan looked at her proudly. Looks like you've been promoted already. Mia giggled. I'm the junior helper. Lena's expression softened. She sleeps through the night now, she said quietly. First time in months. That's her strength, Evan replied. Not mine. Still, hearing it moved him more than he expected. They sat together on a pew near the back, the air filled with the murmur of activity. Lena studied him for a moment. I heard the board's not thrilled about your new direction. He chuckled. They'll live, or they'll leave. You ever worry about losing everything? He paused. I used to. Now I worry about missing what matters while trying to keep it all. Lena smiled faintly. That's rare talk for a CEO. He looked down at the maple leaf badge he'd pinned to his jacket pocket. Maybe it took the right teacher. She followed his gaze, recognizing it instantly. You kept it. It keeps me, he said simply. Outside, the rain turned heavier. Evan walked them to the corner where Rosa was loading supplies into a van. We're doing another distribution run tonight, Rosa called. Hot soup to Westlake. Lena looked uncertain. Can we come? Rosa shrugged. If you're up for it. Evan nodded. I'll drive behind. Safety in numbers. An hour later, the convoy rolled through downtown, small vans filled with warmth instead of commerce. People lined up quietly under the overhangs, hoods up, hands outstretched. Volunteers passed cups of soup and sandwiches, steam rising into the night air. Mia handed out napkins, grinning each time someone said thank you. Lena worked beside her, steady now, strong. Evan watched from a few feet away, helping where he could, no suit this time, just rolled sleeves and rain-damp hair. When a man in line murmured, "Bless you," Evan felt something loosen inside him, a long-held tension fading into stillness. Rosa walked up beside him, nodding toward the mother and child. That right there, she said softly, is what your software can't calculate. Evan smiled. Exactly. It's not supposed to. By the time the last pot was empty, the rain had softened to mist. Volunteers packed up, the streets glowing under lamplight. Mia climbed into the van, waving the maple leaf badge now hanging around her neck again. I told you it was lucky, she said. Evan laughed. Looks like it's doing its job. As he watched them drive away, something inside him settled into quiet certainty. Warm Circuit was more than a project. It was a promise. One he planned to keep. Back at Harbor Nexus, he walked through the lobby, shoes wet, heart full. The building's cold white light seemed warmer now. He looked up at the digital board showing real-time food deliveries across the city. Each pulse a small miracle. And among those tiny lights, he saw what he'd been missing all along. Not data points, but lives, connected by compassion. The next morning dawned clear and bright, the first true sunlight Seattle had seen in weeks. From his office window, Evan watched the Sound sparkle like glass. The ferries glided calmly across the water, and for the first time in a long while, he didn't feel the usual knot of deadlines and obligations twisting in his chest. He'd woken early, not to review contracts, but to write. A proposal draft lay open on his desk titled Warm Circuit, Citywide Expansion Plan. The idea was simple. Connect every shelter, school pantry, and restaurant willing to donate food into one shared, opt-in ecosystem. It wasn't about technology anymore. It was about people finding each other faster. He rubbed his eyes and leaned back in his chair. The maple leaf badge sat beside his keyboard, edges scratched and translucent as ever. He turned it over in his hand, remembering Mia's voice. "It's lucky." Maybe luck was just the courage to listen. A gentle knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. Tessa peeked in. "You have someone waiting in the lobby," she said with a small smile. "Says she brought a delivery, not a meeting." Evan frowned. A delivery? Before he could ask more, the door opened again, and Mia came bounding in, holding a folded piece of paper. Her hair was pulled back into two uneven ponytails, and her boots squeaked with every step. Behind her, Lena followed, looking stronger, more rested. "Surprise!" Mia grinned, handing him the paper. "We made this." Evan unfolded it carefully. It was a hand-drawn picture, a big building with glowing windows labeled Harbor Nexus. And in front of it, stick figures. Him, Lena, and Mia, standing in the rain under a red heart. Above them, in a shaky but proud scrawl, were the words, "Thank you for seeing us." He looked up, eyes soft. "You drew this?" Mia nodded. Mom helped with the words. "Miss Rosa said you should have it before the big city meeting." Lena smiled. "We heard you're taking Warm Circuit to the council." "Trying to," he said. "They want proof that compassion scales." Lena's expression grew thoughtful. "It does. You just have to remind them that the map isn't the miracle. The people are." Evan's chest warmed. "Would you say that again later? To them?" Her eyes widened. "To the council?" "Yeah," he said, half smiling. "I think they need to hear it from someone who's lived it." Lena hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right, but I'm bringing Mia." "Deal," Evan said. That afternoon, they met in the council's marble building downtown. The chambers were formal, echoing with old bureaucratic language and sharp suits. Evan stood at the front beside Rosa. The Warm Circuit dashboard projected on the wall behind them, a living network of glowing routes linking kitchens and shelters across Seattle. "Over the past 7 days," Evan began, "Warm Circuit has rerouted over 1,000 surplus meals that would have gone to waste. Not through surveillance, but through consent and coordination. We're not automating empathy, we're amplifying it." A council member leaned forward skeptically. "Mr. Murrow, data ethics are admirable, but how do we know this isn't just branding? Another way to polish Harbor Nexus after a PR blip?" Evan glanced toward Lena and Mia in the back row. Then he looked back at the council, steady. "Because it started before any of you were watching." He gestured for Lena to stand. She looked nervous but walked forward. Her voice trembled at first, then steadied. "I was one of the people your systems didn't see. I cleaned offices like yours. I fell through the gaps between your spreadsheets, but someone finally stopped to listen, not to a report, not to data, but to my daughter." The room was silent. Mia tugged on her sleeve, whispering, "Tell them about the soup." Lena smiled softly and nodded. "When I was sick, Warm Circuit found us before hunger did. That's what this program means. It's not a number, it's a bridge." Even the most stoic council members seemed to soften. Rosa stepped up next. "We're asking not for funding, but for partnership. Let us connect your city kitchens and community centers into this system. It's ready. We just need permission to care faster." After a long pause, the council chair leaned back and said simply, "Approved. Pilot expansion begins Monday." Applause rose quietly, genuine and subdued. Evan turned toward Lena and Mia, both smiling, both crying, and felt a swell of gratitude rise in his throat. Outside, the air smelled of rain and victory. Reporters waited, but Evan waved them off. He wanted no headlines, just the truth that the city was changing. One meal, one human choice at a time. Lena turned to him, her eyes shining. "You did it." He shook his head. "We did." Mia grinned. "So, can we celebrate?" Evan laughed, the sound free and light. "You read my mind." As they walked toward the car, the sun broke through, scattering gold across the street. Mia reached up, holding the maple leaf badge against the light. "See?" she said. "Still lucky." Evan looked at the badge, then at her. "You were the luck all along." They drove toward the harbor as evening fell, the skyline glowing behind them. And for the first time since he'd built his company, Evan felt not like a founder, but like a part of something living, something true. By Monday, Warm Circuit had gone live across the entire city. The dashboard at Harbor Nexus glowed like a living organism. Hundreds of light points pulsing as meals were matched, trucks rerouted, and volunteers dispatched. For the first time, data looked human. Evan stood in the glass atrium surrounded by monitors showing real-time progress. Each flicker meant someone would eat tonight. Each connection meant the system was working exactly as it should. Fast, ethical, and personal. Tessa approached with a grin. "We just hit the 2000th meal," she said, "and no glitches." "You realize what that means?" Evan smiled faintly. "It means we're proving that compassion scales." Across the hall, Rosa was coordinating with a team of volunteers. Lena sat beside her, now officially hired as Warm Circuit's first community liaison. Mia was perched on a chair nearby, drawing on a tablet someone had given her, small doodles of food trucks and smiling stick figures. When Evan walked over, Mia beamed. "Look, I drew the map but made it with hearts instead of dots." He knelt beside her, studying the colorful sketch. "I think you just solved our branding problem," he joked. She laughed. "Miss Rosa said maps show where people are. I made mine show where people care." He felt a lump in his throat. "That's better than any algorithm I've ever written." Later that afternoon, the city's mayor arrived unannounced. Her entourage filed into the atrium, cameras in tow. "Mr. Murrow," she said, shaking his hand, "I've been watching the pilot results. This is extraordinary work. I'd like to discuss long-term integration. Warm Circuit as part of the city's aid infrastructure." Evan nodded, though his instinct recoiled from publicity. "We'd be honored, but I want this program to stay open source. No private ownership, no gatekeeping. It has to belong to everyone." The mayor blinked. "You'd give it away?" He smiled faintly. "You can't patent kindness." The remark made the reporters pause, scribbling faster. Rosa stepped up beside him. "If we keep it transparent, it stays trustworthy. That's what the people deserve." The mayor nodded thoughtfully. "Then let's start planning. You've changed how this city thinks about technology." As the group dispersed, Lena came forward, holding 2 coffee cups. "You handled that well," she said. "Mostly because you weren't afraid to speak last week," he replied. "You gave it heart." She smiled. "You gave it a voice." Mia came running up then, holding the maple leaf badge in both hands. "Can we put this somewhere special?" she asked. "So everyone remembers?" Evan took it gently, turning it in the light. "Where do you think it should go?" She pointed toward the lobby wall beside the main Warm Circuit display. "Right there, so it can see everyone come and go." Rosa chuckled. "I like that idea." Evan found a small, clear mount and carefully placed the badge inside. Under it, he taped a handwritten note from Mia's drawing. "No algorithm matters if it misses a child's whisper." People passing by stopped to read it. No one said a word. They didn't need to. The meaning hung heavy and bright, like the badge itself catching sunlight. That evening, when the building finally emptied, Evan lingered by the display. The lights of the city twinkled beyond the glass walls, reflecting in his eyes. He could see the route data, dots and lines shifting as meals found their destinations. But what he really saw were stories. Unseen faces, quiet hunger, second chances. Lena approached with her coat over her arm. "We're heading out," she said. "Miss Rosa's dropping us home. You sure you don't want to grab dinner?" He shook his head. "You two go. I'll probably just end up microwaving something tragic." She laughed softly. "You need a break." He turned toward her, sincerity in his tone. "I got one. It started the day I met your daughter." Lena hesitated, eyes soft. "You know, Mia prays for you every night. She says, 'Please help Mr. Evan not be so lonely at work.'" He smiled, eyes lowering. "Then she's already helping." There was a pause, gentle, unhurried. Then Lena said, "You don't have to do this alone, you know. Even the people who fix the system need someone to keep them steady." Evan looked up at her. "You offering the job?" "Maybe," she said with a small grin. He chuckled quietly. "I'll think about it." As they walked toward the exit, the badge caught one last glimmer of light. The faint outline of a maple leaf shimmered across the floor, landing right where Evan stood. He looked down and smiled, a silent promise to keep showing up. Outside, the city pulsed with movement, but inside, Harbor Nexus felt like a heartbeat finally finding rhythm. 3 months later, Seattle had changed. You could see it not in the headlines, but in the small, ordinary moments. The food truck that stayed open late for outreach runs, the volunteers who now wore warm circuit badges with pride, the shelters reporting empty wait lists for the first time in years. Harbor Nexus had become less a company and more a movement. The glass building that once echoed with cold ambition now felt alive. Its lobby filled with plants, bulletin boards, and the quiet laughter of volunteers coordinating their routes. Evan stood near the digital map one morning, coffee in hand, watching new lines bloom across the city like veins of light. It was working, really working. Tessa approached with a clipboard. "You've been named Innovator of the Year by Tech Chronicle. They want a full-page spread, photo shoot, cover interview, the whole thing." Evan smiled wryly. "Do I get to decline gracefully?" She grinned. "I already told them you'd only do it if the focus was on warm circuit, not you." "Good," he said. "The world has enough stories about men in suits." Just then, Rosa strode in, waving her phone. "Big news," she said. "We just finalized a partnership with Portland. Warm circuits going statewide, and guess who volunteered to lead the training?" "Lena," Evan guessed, smiling. Rosa nodded. "She's a natural, and Mia's basically our unofficial mascot." Evan laughed softly. "I'm not surprised." He turned toward the lobby where Lena was talking to a group of new volunteers, her posture confident, her smile warm. She wore a simple navy sweater with the Warm Circuit logo stitched at the cuff, a small maple leaf. Beside her, Mia was handing out lanyards, greeting everyone with unfiltered joy. "Your pilot family's turning into leadership," Rosa said with quiet pride. "That was always the goal," he replied. Later that afternoon, Evan joined them for lunch in the Atrium Cafe. Mia was recounting a story between bites of soup. "So, I told Miss Rosa that if we ever go to another city, we should call it Warm Galaxy, because the lines look like stars now." Evan chuckled. "You might need to trademark that before someone else does." Lena smiled at him over her coffee bag. "She talks about this place like it's magic." He leaned forward. "Maybe it is. Magic built by people who stopped pretending everything had to be perfect before it mattered." Lena's gaze lingered on him, thoughtful. "You look different," she said. "Lighter." He laughed quietly. "Maybe that's what happens when you stop building for control and start building for connection." She nodded slowly. "You've done more than you realize, Evan. Not just for us, for the city. You gave people permission to care out loud." Her words landed softly but deep. He looked away toward the window, where light poured through the rain-streaked glass. "Funny thing," he said. "I thought I was helping her that day at the expo." "Mia?" He smiled. Turns out she helped me. Mia looked up, eyes wide. I did? You did, he said gently. You reminded me what all of this was supposed to be about. That evening, he walked alone through the Harbor Nexus lobby. The maple leaf badge still hung under the glass frame beside the warm circuit map. Visitors often stopped there, some to take photos, others to simply stand in silence. He traced the engraved plaque beneath it, the words Mia had written. No algorithm matters if it misses a child's whisper. For months, he'd lived by that line, and tonight, he realized it wasn't just a mission, it was a mirror. He took out his phone, snapped a photo of the display, and sent it to Lena with a single message. You and Mia made this possible. A moment later, she replied, We just believed you meant it. He stood there for a long while, the hum of the city pulsing through the glass. Warm Circuit had grown beyond anything he'd imagined. Bigger than Nexus, bigger than him. But the heart of it remained small and human. A girl with a lucky badge and a whisper that changed everything. As he left the building, he passed a group of new recruits huddled near the entrance, Rosa handing them umbrellas. They looked up to him like he was some kind of legend, and he almost laughed. He wasn't a legend. He was just a man who had listened. Outside, the rain began again. Soft, silvery, endless. He didn't rush for cover. He let it fall, soaking into his hair, his coat, the pavement beneath his feet. For the first time in years, Evan Murrow felt completely present. He turned toward the sound where fairies moved through mist and light and whispered under his breath, We found it, Mia. The map that cares. The day of the celebration arrived quietly. No fanfare, no stage lights, just people gathering in the Harbor Nexus atrium, where the air smelled faintly of coffee and rain. The city had declared it Warm Circuit Day, but Evan had insisted the event stay simple. It wasn't about him. It was about everyone who'd kept the promise alive. Rows of folding chairs filled the lobby. Volunteers, donors, engineers, and families sat side by side. At the front, a large screen displayed a real-time map of Seattle, glowing softly in gold threads. Each light a meal delivered, a shelter opened, a hand extended. Evan stood near the side, sleeves rolled, tie undone, watching Lena help Rosa arrange the refreshments table. Mia darted between guests, her maple leaf badge shining like a little beacon. When the crowd settled, Rosa took the microphone first. 3 months ago, she began, a man who builds technology listened to a whisper most of us would have missed. A little girl's hunger became a city's turning point. And today, Seattle runs on compassion measured in connections, not code. The applause was gentle but full. Evan's throat tightened. Lena stepped forward next. Her voice was steady, clear. You've all seen the numbers, but behind every dot on that map is a story. Mine and my daughter's is one of them. We were invisible once, until someone chose to look and kept looking. She glanced toward Evan. Warm Circuit didn't save us. It reminded us that we mattered. Evan lowered his gaze, emotion catching in his chest. Then, Mia climbed onto the step stool Rosa had set up for her, gripping the mic with both hands. And Mr. Evan promised he'd make sure no one ever goes hungry again, she said proudly, her small voice ringing through the hall. So now he has to keep his promise forever. The room broke into laughter and applause. Evan finally stepped forward, accepting the microphone from her. You know, he said, smiling softly, I think she just made my lifetime job description. The laughter faded into silence as he continued. When I started this company, I thought success meant control, predicting everything before it happened. But the truth is, life isn't meant to be controlled. It's meant to be connected. And connection doesn't start in boardrooms or algorithms. It starts when we stop long enough to listen. He paused, glancing at the framed badge behind him. A child's whisper changed the way I see the world. It reminded me that no algorithm matters if it misses the sound of someone needing help. He turned back to the crowd. That's our legacy. Not profit, not prestige, but presence. The audience rose in a standing ovation. Rosa wiped a tear discreetly. Lena clapped, eyes shining. And Mia threw her small arms around Evan's waist, whispering, "You did it." He bent down, smiling. "We did it." As the gathering dispersed, evening light filled the atrium. Through the glass walls the city shimmered, reflections dancing on wet pavement. Evan stood alone for a moment, watching the warm circuit dashboard cycle through its routes. One by one, tiny lights blinked across the map like stars. Lena walked up beside him, her voice low. "You know, when I first met you, I thought you were another man who wanted to fix things from far away." He glanced at her. "And now?" "Now, I think you finally learned how to stay close." He smiled quietly. "Guess I had good teachers." Mia ran up, waving her sketchbook. "Look," she said. "I drew the map again, but this time it has all of us in it." He took the drawing carefully. In her picture, the city lights formed a giant heart. Inside it, tiny figures held hands beneath the shining maple leaf. "That's perfect," he said, his voice soft. "Can we hang it next to the badge?" she asked. "Absolutely." He framed it later that night, right beside the plaque. The maple leaf caught the last rays of sunset, casting a faint glow across Mia's crayon drawing. The two symbols, child's art and found badge, told a single story, that one whisper could reroute an entire city. When the lights dimmed and everyone had gone, Evan lingered by the window overlooking the harbor. The ferries cut through the water, their lights steady and patient. Rain began again, tapping softly against the glass. He spoke quietly, almost to himself. "You were right, Mia. It was luck, the kind we make for each other." In the reflection, he could see it all. The badge, the map, and a city still breathing because people had remembered to care. For the first time in years, Evan Murrow didn't feel like a man chasing progress. He felt like someone who had finally arrived. Outside, the rain fell steady and kind, washing the city clean. And in the lobby of Harbor Nexus, beneath the glow of a single maple leaf, the words on the plaque gleamed softly in the dark. "No algorithm matters if it misses a child's whisper."